The last voyage of the Elysium in the year 2247, space travel was no longer a dream but a reality, and humanity had spread across the stars. Colonies were established on distant planets, and space stations orbited the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The pride of Earth's fleet was the Elysium, a massive starship capable of long-haul voyages between the stars. She was a marvel of engineering, with a crew of 300 and enough resources to sustain them for years. The Elysium had completed dozens of missions, each one more daring than the last. And her name was synonymous with exploration and discovery. But her final mission was different. Captain Jonathan Hale stood on the bridge of the Elysium, staring out at the vastness of space. Before him lay a region of space known as the Abyss, a dark, uncharted void that no ship had ever returned from. It was a place of mystery, feared by many and whispered about in the halls of the Galactic Federation. Yet, it was here that the Elysium had been sent, tasked with investigating strange signals that had been detected emanating from the Abyss. "Captain, we're approaching the boundary of the Abyss," said Commander Elena Drake, his second in command. Her voice was calm, but Hale could sense the unease in her eyes. Hale nodded. "Slow us to sublight speed and prepare to deploy the long-range scanners. Let's see what we're dealing with." The crew worked with the precision that came from years of experience. The Elysium slowed, her engines humming softly as the ship crossed the invisible threshold into the Abyss. The darkness outside the ship seemed to grow deeper, swallowing the stars and casting an eerie shadow over the bridge. "Scanners are online, Captain," reported Lieutenant Sarah Finch, the ship's lead science officer. "We're picking up faint energy readings, but they're strange." Hale turned to her. "Strange how?" Finch frowned as she studied the data on her console. "The signals are fluctuating in a way I've never seen before. It's almost as if they're alive." "Alive?" Hale echoed, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "It's hard to explain," Finch replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. "The energy patterns are changing, adapting, like they're responding to us." Hale exchanged a glance with Commander Drake, who looked just as puzzled as he felt. "Can you trace the source?" Finch hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. It's coming from a point about 3 light years into the Abyss." Hale took a deep breath. The Abyss was uncharted territory, a place where no ship had ventured and returned to tell the tale. But the Elysium was here for a reason, and Hale wasn't about to turn back now. "Set a course for the source of the signal," he ordered. "Engage the jump drive." The crew obeyed, and moments later, the Elysium lurched forward, the stars outside the ship blurring as they entered faster than light travel. The journey took only minutes, but to the crew, it felt like an eternity. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they waited to see what awaited them on the other side. When the ship dropped out of FTL, the view screen flickered and then cleared, revealing a sight that took everyone's breath away. Before them lay a massive structure, floating in the darkness of space. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. A colossal twisted mass of metal and stone, with jagged spires that jutted out in all directions. The structure seemed to pulse with an eerie, faint blue light, casting long shadows across its surface. It was ancient, alien, and utterly incomprehensible. "What is that?" whispered Drake, her voice barely audible. Finch shook her head, her eyes wide with disbelief. I have no sight. The structure is massive, easily the size of a small moon, and it's emitting the same energy signals we detected earlier. Hale felt a chill run down his spine. The structure was clearly not of human origin, and the implications of its existence were staggering. Who or what had built it? And why? "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Lang, breaking the silence. His voice was tense. "It's coming from the structure." Hale's heart skipped a beat. Put it on speakers. The bridge was filled with static, and then a voice, distorted, alien, and yet somehow familiar, echoed through the room. "Welcome, travelers." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The voice was speaking in English, but there was something off about it, a strange, unnatural quality that made Hale's skin crawl. "Who are you?" Hale asked, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. There was a pause, and then the voice replied, "We are the Watchers. We have been waiting for you." "Waiting for us?" Hale repeated. "Why?" "To test you," the voice said, its tone unreadable. "To see if you are worthy." "Worthy of what?" Drake asked, her eyes narrowing. "Of knowledge," the voice answered. "Of power, of understanding the true nature of the universe." Hale frowned. "And if we're not worthy?" The voice did not respond immediately. When it did, it was colder, more ominous. "Then you will join the others who have failed." A sense of dread settled over the bridge. Hale could feel the weight of the decision before him. This was no ordinary mission. This was something far greater, something beyond human comprehension. "Captain," Finch said quietly, "the energy readings are spiking. I think the structure is powering up." Hale made a split-second decision. "All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Shields up, weapons online." But it was too late. The structure unleashed a pulse of energy that slammed into the Elysium, sending the ship spinning out of control. The lights on the bridge flickered, and alarms blared as the crew struggled to regain control. "Shields are failing," shouted Engineering Officer Ramos. "We're taking heavy damage." "Captain, we're being pulled in," Drake yelled, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair as the ship was drawn toward the structure by an unseen force. Hale could only watch helplessly as the Elysium was dragged closer and closer to the massive alien construct. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, and the view screen filled with the glowing blue light of the structure. And then everything went black. When Hale regained consciousness, he found himself lying on the cold metallic floor of a dark chamber. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, and a low hum filled the space. Slowly, he sat up, his head pounding. "Captain?" came a weak voice. Hale turned to see Drake lying a few feet away, struggling to sit up. Beyond her, he could see several other members of the crew, all in varying states of disarray. "Elena, are you all right?" Hale asked, crawling over to her. Drake nodded, though she looked pale and shaken. "I think so." "What happened?" "I'm not sure," Hale replied, helping her to her feet. "But we're not on the Elysium anymore." They looked around the chamber. It was vast, with high ceilings and walls covered in strange glowing symbols that pulsed rhythmically. The floor beneath them was smooth and metallic, with intricate patterns etched into the surface. "We must be inside the structure," Finch said. her voice trembling as she approached them. "But how did we get here?" Hale shook his head. "I don't know. The last thing I remember is the ship being pulled in. After that, nothing." As the crew regrouped, a low voice echoed through the chamber, causing them all to freeze. "You have been chosen," the voice said. It was the same voice they had heard before, but now it seemed to come from all around them. "Chosen for what?" Hale demanded, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "To prove your worth," the voice replied, "to face the trials of the abyss. If you succeed, you will be granted the knowledge and power you seek. If you fail, you will join the others." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary mission. This was a test, and the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. "What kind of trials?" Drake asked, her hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm at her belt. The voice did not answer directly. Instead, the floor beneath them began to shift, and the chamber itself seemed to come alive. Walls moved. Doors appeared where there had been none, and the symbols on the walls glowed brighter. "Proceed," the voice said, "and discover your fate." Hale looked at his crew, his friends, his family, and saw the fear in their eyes. But he also saw determination. They had faced countless dangers together, and they would face this one as well. "Let's move," Hale said, leading the way toward the nearest door. "Stay sharp and watch each other's backs." As they stepped through the doorway, they were plunged into a labyrinth of twisting corridors and shifting walls. The air grew colder, and the strange symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. The trials began almost immediately. First came the illusions, visions of the crew's worst fears, projected onto the walls and floors of the labyrinth. Hale saw his home on Earth burning, his family trapped inside. Drake saw her brother,